What is up, everybody? Welcome to the One Wheel Podcast. Your host, Adam Laser. I got a very, very special guest today, Shane Awtrey, also known as Shane 5000 on social media. Shane is a long-time one-wheeler, and it was just an amazing conversation to hear about his life before One Wheel, when he got the One Wheel, and some things that happened in his life to make him change his path and go on an adventure. So stay tuned for this one. Learn more about this epic stoke dude. And yeah, thanks for listening, as always. Wow.
Hell yeah.
Shane Awtrey. Is it Awtrey or Awtrey?
Awtrey.
Awtrey.
Yeah.
Also known as Shane 5000.
Yeah.
This is cool, man.
Jack said he calls me Shane 5G. I kind of like that
Shane
one.
5G.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty soon you'll have to do 6G. But this is rad to have you here because last night I was like trying to do my research a little bit because, we've hung out a few times, but I don't really know much about you other than your recent adventures.
All right.
And I remember a while back I got really stoked on the fact that you were selling your business and getting an RV and going to travel across the country. And I think I said that on the Scott Mendenhall podcast. So it's just cool that now you are here and this is a part of your adventure. And yeah, I'm stoked.
It's so crazy. Yeah, I couldn't make this stuff up to be here at One Wheel. It's so awesome. Yeah, really to be here 3 times in the last few weeks has been unreal.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it all happens at once.
Sure does. Yeah.
You were here for you were helping us out being talent in a One Wheel ad, which is super cool.
That was a lot of fun to be part of. Yeah, can't wait to see that.
Yeah, and I wasn't really a part of it, so could you tell us like what was your role and what were you doing?
Yeah, so I think they shot a few different scenes. Like, and from my understanding, is the commercial is going to kind of tell a story on why the One Wheel is just this great machine that you should own. So this guy's trying to talk his wife into it, and my section is cruising along Santa Cruz, right along the beach, just flow in that flow state, wind in the hair, just that we all love so much. It's just a epic Santa Cruz backdrop. And yeah, I've heard that Tyler was telling me he's seen a couple, or someone told me this morning they've seen a preview shot and it looks pretty sick. So
sounds like hard work. Sounds like you had a hard job.
Yeah, really hard. Slaving over here.
That's cool because for us it's like we always want to integrate people that ride the board, that are part of the community, and you can't fake that stuff. You can't go on casting and get people to do that stuff. We need real riders.
Yeah, it was cool to be a part of it for sure. Very honored. And
you probably saw like all the behind the scenes of the production stuff, and
yeah,
it's pretty wild.
It was wild. Yeah, the camera bolted into the van, it was neat to be a part of it and experience it all for sure.
Dope. Well, I really appreciate you coming out here to just chat on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, when you were here, you like kind of whispered in my ear. You were like, "Hey, I'd love to be on the podcast sometime."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, you got a cool story, man. Like, all I know about you is your recent adventure. So I think for me, I want to learn more about who Shane Awtrey is, what was life like before One Wheel, when you got into One Wheel, and also just like your life in general, because you are living what some people would say is like the dream of just getting out there and doing it and exploring the country and seeing all sorts of things."
Yeah, it definitely feels like I'm living the dream every day. But I mean, just a quick background is, I just grew up Midwest town, blue collar family, just worked, went to school, did my thing. And, work was what you did, you worked. So I started and got into HVAC right out of high school, just kind of did that thing. I actually went back to school, got a degree in computer programming, and just weird timing. I just with the economy and the timing, never worked out that. But I ended up starting my own HVAC business, and yeah, I went on to do that for 17, 18 years when I started the company. So I guess a little the board sport side of things, I was like many of us skateboarded whenever I was a kid. And about the time I turned 16, just, had four wheels and just kind of skateboarding fell to the side. When I started the company when I was 25 years old, suddenly I had some more free time and these skate parks started popping up everywhere. So I kind of picked back up skateboarding when I was in my mid 20s, and I just literally had nothing to do except for wait for service calls. Like I started like a brand new company and I would get a few calls a day, but nowhere to go. I'd just go hang out at the skate park and just like skate all day, and then like get a call and like put my boots on, go run the call, and then like back to the skate park. And like, that's what I did until I got busy enough that I couldn't, I just eventually was too busy to skate anymore, and getting hurt and working didn't always go together. So that kind of, I guess I skated for maybe 5 or 6 years. In my early 30s, I stopped skating, and probably about 2015, a good friend of mine just hits me up out of nowhere. And he's like, dude, you meet me at the park. You got to try this. I'm like, okay. So I meet him there. It's 2015. And he bought, I don't even know where he got these, but it was like he bought a truckload of EUCs from China. And they were like the tiniest little EUCs you've ever seen. Like now the EUC world, like I still have it. And when you look at it, it's just like so weird.
It's a relic.
But so like I got this thing, and like, it was just so much fun. Like I just go out and like ride for 30 minutes and like kill it. And that was it. And that was, but it was just nice to have that break in your day. So, I probably messed with that for like a year, but it was nothing more than a couple times a week I'd get out. And then I seen the OneWheel ad, and I'm just like, what is that? Like, and just immediately I knew I had to have one. And this was in early 2017. So
I saw this. So I creeped on your Instagram a little bit, and I was like, how long has Shane been riding OneWheel? You've been riding since like 2017. You had a Plus, you had a couple, or it seemed
yeah.
Like, dang, you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, so I ordered it, I think like March or April of 2017, and like everyone was waiting back then. Like you had to wait and wait and wait. And I can remember I was at work. It was July when it showed up, which is our busy season. I'm in the air conditioning business, and the UPS guy shows up at my office and drops off this wheel. And like, we're so busy, and all I want to do is go take this thing out in the parking lot. But I'm the boss, and I can't like just throw everything to the wind, right? So I sat there all day long and like waited for the office to close. And I remember there was one guy who, coincidentally, his name's Shane too. He's out making sheet metal in the shop, and I walk out and I'm like, dude, I just got this OneWheel. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, that looks cool. And I just like jumped on it and like just started riding. And I was just in love. I mean, it was just that instant gratification, immediately found that flow state. And so yeah, that was the start of it for me. So now I had this thing that I could actually take out a little bit more than 30 minutes at a time, that's just kind of how it started. I just love the OneWheel. And then so that was July of 2017. And then in September, we were going down to Florida to visit a friend, and we were going to fly home. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be without a OneWheel. So I started looking around online, and Chris Richardson, of all people, which I had no idea, it was just some random guy online. I was like, hey, you have a Plus for sale? He's like, yeah, because I knew if I ordered it from you guys, I'd be waiting for months.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's brand new. I'll sell it for retail. I was like, I'll come get it. So I went down to Florida, got this second Plus, and I thought I was like, I had two boards.
You're a king.
I had a Chafon charger, so you could charge one board, ride one board. It only takes 30 minutes to charge a Plus. It took 30 minutes to kill it. So I could ride forever, I felt like, And then the XR come out, like, shortly after that. So then it was, that was kind of, so I'm like, now I have 3 boards, and I'm only riding one of them. And, yeah. It's the shuffle that we all go through,
Well, that's cool. It's been a part of your life for quite a while now. And I actually, when you were talking about like skating for 30 minutes or like, and then now you could ride a OneWheel. Have you skateboarded recently?
It's so hard,
dude.
I respect all these guys that go back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how do you do it? So like, I was one of those that like, I was like, I'm going to be able to drop in when I'm 80, just because it's one of those things. Like you just think like there's certain skills that are just like become second nature. And I'm like, I'm going to drop in when I'm an old man just to do it, Well, then I stopped skating for like a few years, and in 2020 we were out at Christian's place, One Way Place. I don't know. He's got the crazy skate park in his backyard,
Oh, really?
and this huge one-wheel velodrome. And I'm like, dude, I want to go skate. And it was the first time I stepped on a skateboard in 3 years, and I was like, no. It's
different.
weird.
I had a moment at Wheel Fun Stuff weekend, and I grabbed the board and was just screwing around in their little garage area they have there. And I was sweating bullets after like 20 minutes of trying like a kickflip and like a couple of other tricks. And I was just like, whoa, this is like, I forgot how specific, like all the little muscles and just, I don't know. It was very hard and very difficult. And like things came back, like, you know, it's like riding a bike, you kind of start getting it back and you want to like land that trick that you used to be able to do. But, oh my gosh.
Yeah. You want to lean forward.
Yeah.
Like
you're like, oh, I'm on four wheels instead of just one wheel, and I have to push, but like, it's all just different. And when I actually first started at One Wheel, it was like, oh, I'm going to buy myself a new skateboard. And during my lunch breaks, I would go outside and I'd practice like all my old tricks. And I was getting like pretty good for a while and thinking that I'd go, because I'd just moved to Santa Cruz, thinking I'd go to all these skate parks around here. Because I grew up on the East Coast. There was no skate parks. Like you had to, maybe we go to like New York City, and that's what you did. So I'm like, oh, there's a cement park right by my house. What? And yeah, I never followed through with that, because it's like, of course I'm going to jump on the one wheel and just get in the zone and do that instead.
Right. And, yeah, and that was the thing with me growing up in the Midwest, was like we didn't have snow. You know, we had one spot to snowboard, and it was ice. You know, we didn't have water sports. There was no surfing. So like skateboarding was the only option for a board sport. And then it was on, you know, crappy city streets. There was no skate parks and stuff whenever we were, you know, kids. And that was the one thing that made the one wheel so magical, was I can do this anywhere.
Literally
anytime.
the ad, the world is your playground. Like that's what it just, yeah. Cause you think like, even you're skateboarding on a street, you hit a little pebble and it's like, and then you get thrown forward, you know?
Right.
And it's like, oh, a one wheel, I could just go onto the grass. I could go onto this like dirt berm that nobody would have ever thought, or just ride on the gravel.
Yeah.
Definitely like expands the imagination and where you can go with it.
For sure.
Where in the Midwest did you grow up?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
So St. Louis, Missouri. So just kind of jumping back to the 2017. So after I get the two one wheels, they were doing the first Float Life Fest, and I was dating my wife at the time, Peggy, and I was like, oh, she always called it my scooter. She's like, you gonna go ride your scooter? So I was like, honey, look, they're having a scooter festival, and she says, oh my God, are you gonna go? I'm like, oh, I was just joking. Like, she's like, I've always wanted to go to Asheville. We should go. I'm like, okay, let's go to Asheville. So she coined it Scooter Palooza at that moment.
Scooter Palooza.
She started telling everyone we're going to Scooter Palooza. So we drove out there, and it was the first time I ever rode with anyone. You know, like I never even, besides stopping and buying that board from Chris for a minute, you know, but I was like, oh, there's so many like-minded people, you know, like it was just, I found my people. That's really how it felt, was attending that first Flow Life Fest. And then it was go home and wait for the next one, you know? And even another funny thing is in 2017, whenever I bought my one wheel, I was just desperate for one wheel content, you know? And I remember finding the Race for the Rail where Soup won. And I was like, they race these things? Like, and it was in like a month prior. I'm like, I just missed it. Like, you know, and we all know, you know, one was kind of, we waited for a date to be like, well, they have it again. When's this race coming? You know, and I was just waiting for the next Race for the Rail. And I've actually been to all of the Race for the Rail since I missed the one where Soup won, and then I missed 2020 because of COVID.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Are you coming this year?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that it would be this weekend.
Yeah. You know,
it is.
Things happen.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so wild, because you are like, I mean, I started working for OneWheel in 2019. So like a couple of years after you found the OneWheel, and just hearing you say we had to wait a whole year for another event or like another race. And now we're at the point where it's like, dude, there's so many things going on. How do you pick and choose what to go to? And like, you know, there's so many races and events. It's like awesome. But at the same time, like from your perspective, it's like you were there when it was like nothing. And then now there's all these options and all these things. And to see it grow like that from like your perspective, what is that like to like be at one point where you're like, oh, I actually like didn't know anybody that rode these things except for one dude in Florida.
Yeah.
And now you go to an event and it's like, what?
It's so crazy. I mean, Flow Life Fest has been an awesome event, and to watch the progress that it's had over the past 5 or 6 years. Dirt Surfers has been another one. I was at the first Dirt Surfers in 2020, and like that moment, you know, that changed one wheel racing as we knew it. You know, like that was a changing point, and you know, and all of these have been just huge, and then just to see how everything follows after that, and like you said, now you can't make it to all the events. I mean, even me, like my goal is to make it to every event, and like I still can't. Like I have nothing. My job is to make it to every single one wheel event, and I still can't do it. Like it's really hard. There's so many events out there, you know, and that says a lot. I mean, that's awesome. But yeah, no, really, really cool to see the growth.
So talk to me about, so you sold your business, is that correct? Or like what led you to taking this leap of basically living in an RV and traveling around and just wanting to do that for this portion of your life?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of one of those. I started when I was a kid. I was 25 years old. I started the business, and I always kind of had in the back of my head that I was going to do this for 20 years. Like that was it's a lot of work. I worked 80 hours for ever, you know. I mean,
my dad was an electrician, so I know like,
you know, it was just a lot of grind. And I always kind of knew like, I can't do this forever. Like I can't do this forever. Like I want to do it. I'm going to do 20 years. I'm going to put it in. And I started this company, and it just flourished. I mean, I really had an awesome company that I never would have sold it if there would have been other things in place. Like it was a combination of hundreds of things that ultimately led to what it was. The labor market was super tough to deal with. It was just getting so hard to find quality people, and I was stressing myself out all the time with nothing to do with heating and air conditioning. It was just stress about just work and business. And so, you know, that's life. We all go through that. And in 2022, in June, I was out at Wheel Scorcher in Cherokee, North Carolina for one of the ORL qualifiers. And I was out there a few days early, and I was riding. I was feeling great. It was on top of the world. And Friday night, the race was on Saturday. Friday night, I remember Rachel and Nick, they just got into town, and I had been riding, and they're like, we need to go get some practice. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm just gonna chill, and I'll race. We'll race tomorrow, you know. And so I think they left, and I was like, the sun's shining. I'm like, it's so perfect outside. Like, what am I doing? I'm gonna go ride. And you know, it's one of those decisions. So anyway, we're coming down the mountain, and it wasn't a bad fall. It was just the perfect fall. But I had a bad accident on top of the mountain. I came down on the board, and I basically karate chopped my rail. Oh. And I had a double compound break where both bones popped out of my arm. So I had a bone sticking out here, and my wrist just literally flapped like back over. And we're at the top of the mountain. Like we literally just dropped in the trail. So when that happened, I was just like, it happened, and I knew I was on top of the mountain, and I was like, I got to get out of here. I jumped back on my board, and I rode like 100 yards, and it was like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. So I pretty much like collapsed, and Rachel Payne was the first one to get to me after that. And she's like, she didn't,
Yeah.
some people just don't deal well with, and she was just like, she couldn't even look at me. But anyway, long story short, it took an hour and a half for EMTs to get up there to
dude.
me. So for an hour and a half, I'm just laying there staring at my bones sticking out of me. And Rachel Cecil she was like my guardian angel. That she was with me the whole time. Her and Matt Holcomb were both of, Finn's dad. And it was so funny because they were like the devil and the angel. Like Rachel's like, "You're going to be okay." And Matt's like, "Don't tell him that, dude. You're fuck, this is bad, man. This is really bad." And I'm just like, but they both like coached me through it. And anyway, so it took another hour and a half to get me off the mountain. I got a helicopter ride. Like, it was a pretty traumatizing experience. I mean, the whole thing, and just really made me think, it really, and I'm glad that I didn't think about a lot of these things while I was on the mountain, but in the days to follow, I really realized, like, dang, I could have died on that. Like, I could have bled out. Like, I could have just, all these things start, and you just realize how precious life is and how short life is. And I just really started thinking about everything I had going on. And, I asked myself, like, how do you measure success? Like, what are you working for? What's your goal in life? What are you trying to achieve? And, I guess I answer myself with, I measure success as being able to do what I want every day, being able to have those freedoms. And I love my job, and I love the employees, and I love the customers, and I love all these things about the business, but it's shackles. I wear these shackles every day, and it limits me on what I can do. And while I love what I do, it's keeping me from a whole other life. And, the opportunity was there. I seen the path. And, I mean, for years I had people calling me just constantly trying to buy the business. And I didn't even acknowledge it. I was just like, man, like this, I'm never going to sell it because it was so great, and it wasn't until like you just have a shift in your thoughts, I guess, a little bit. And it was still one of the hardest things I've ever done. Still, it's hard to even imagine right now. I mean, to go from just the constant grind to freedom. I mean, and just flexibility, and and it's been really cool. So, that accident was definitely the tipping point, and I just started talking with my wife, and one thing led to another, and we did it. We sold the business. We sold basically everything we have. We saved a few things, shoved them in storage. We rented out our house and bought an RV, and we never even had owned an RV before. We never, like, when we went camping, like, we get a cabin. Like, we loved outdoors and nature and everything, but we just wanted to just get out and explore and figure it out. And it's been really cool. It's been one of the coolest things to hear is just the inspiration. Like, so many people just tell me how inspiring it's been for them in their
100%.
life. I mean, whether it's just random people, the lady cutting my hair, or the person, the Uber driver, or the one-wheel community. I mean, to go to these events and just have people just like, dude, I'm following along. Like, it's so awesome to see what you're doing, and it's an inspiration. And
yeah, dude,
that's really cool.
That's like how I recognized you. Like, I saw it was like you had an emotional video online about like that process. And I forget, somebody shared it, and I watched it, and I was like, this is amazing. This inspires me, because I love when people follow their dreams, or like know that there is something else for them to do in life, and especially taking chances. That stuff inspires me so much. And I love hearing that you had this very traumatic incident where it made you rethink what you want in life and what you wanted to do. Because I've been there before, like, and I think like that it takes a very special. It's very hard. It takes a lot of courage to like jump the boat and jump ship and be like, I'm totally gonna do 180, and just like, what I was doing in the past is now like, that's just a chapter that I'm closing.
Mm-hmm.
And to bounce back from that and like have those thoughts, and then also just be like, all right, let's just see what happens next. And it's so awesome that your wife was like on board and everything. Like,
Yeah, definitely shout out to Peggy. I mean,
Yeah.
she's so awesome. She's just like, if it makes you happy, let's do it. And you know, I
It's amazing.
couldn't have a better fan, couldn't have a better person to do it with for sure.
Dude, I get like a little emotional right there because you're just it is inspiring, and I think
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people can learn from something like that, or take away from a story like that, because you know, you easily could have just like had that accident and then got better and then gone back to your normal life and routine,
Yeah.
and you decided that that's not what you wanted to do.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that too. You know, like making those videos are like, that's, you know, it's a little out of character for me, but it wasn't, but it's something compels you that you just feel like you need to put your story out there. And when you hear that people like appreciate, like, you know, just like doing all this, you know, it's, to put it out there is hard. To come on the podcast, you know, it sounds so good, but then you're like, what am I doing? I'm nervous, you know, like, but you know, you want to share your story and just brighten as many lives along the way as possible. That's kind of the goal.
I think it's an important thing in life to, like, you know, what else do we have but our story? And everybody has a story. And some people might think like, oh, I don't do crazy stuff, or like I haven't taken crazy chances. But it doesn't matter. Like, it's just sharing more of ourselves with other people can inspire them to just do something, you know, like through this job, I'm just doing my job most of the time. And then I'll go to One Wheel events and it'll be like, I watch your videos and you inspired me to get a One Wheel. And I'm like, whoa, this is like wild. And then I think about it and I'm like, you know, I'm doing more than just like, my job is doing more than just like, oh, coming in and doing work and doing all this stuff, or any adventures I've had that inspire people. It's like, it is eye-opening to see like how that affects other people when you're just like, I just want to live my life. I'm just doing whatever, you know, but like it's affecting other people in a positive way.
Yeah. And I mean, and like just how much a one wheel affects somebody. Like, you know, I mean, if you can introduce a one wheel into someone's life, like that can potentially change their course. I mean, it's that,
and it has
that big
for thousands
for
and
so many
thousands of
people.
people. I think that's like, we say it all the time, Jack and I, and everybody on our team. And it's just so amazing. Like, there are not many products that do that. And I even think about, like, I am a hardcore bike guy, but there's something about like the One Wheel that has a different place in my life, that like, if I just want to step outside and clear my head and go for a ride or anything else, or like get together with people, or you go to an event and you go on a ride, and it's just like, it has done so much for so many people. And I think that's like the coolest part about it.
Yeah, many different layers. You know, it provides that flow state, that just that able to just go out and release yourself, that quick little ride. But you know, the events, the community, the people, like just overall. I mean, it's so crazy to like. I think about it all the time. Like, what would I be doing like without this electric toy in my life? You know, like it's so weird how much it's like changed everything. And yeah, it's mind-boggling. Just,
Dude.
I mean, all of my friends are, you know, I mean, it's so funny that my friends before One Wheel bought One Wheels to try, and they're like, we got to get a One Wheel to hang out with Awtrey. And that's a true story. Like it's just crazy how much it's just encapsulated everything, and just so happy to be a part of this community and sport, and especially here on the ground level, just seeing it all take off. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's really rad. I kind of want to like hear more about some of your adventures that you've been having with Peggy in the RV, and Goose is your dog's name?
Yeah, Goose.
Yeah.
So February we bought, so we sold the business in December, or we closed at the very end of December. I worked through December, and then January 1 was pretty much, we were working on getting the stuff ready. We bought the RV in January. February, we hit the road like first week of February and just like went to Florida. Spent the whole month like just like figuring out like, okay, is this really what we want to do? Does everything work? Do we know how to do this thing? Just we loved it. We didn't want to go home. We're like, do we gotta go? Like, we gotta go home and like at least like we got a house and stuff. We got responsibilities. So we went back and we spent the month of March just basically clearing everything out, getting it ready for that long-term leave. And I guess March and April, the last week of April, it was actually the day after my birthday, we departed. And today's day 100. I mentioned that when we were grabbing coffee. I just kind of keep track of days, and hard to think it's been 100 days. But yeah, we left home 100 days ago, and so I mean we've hit all the events. It's been February. We were down in Stokebird. We did that one. We came back. We've been to Oak City. We've been to Dirt Surfers. But the funnest part is like filling in the gaps in between all the events, because you can be there a week early to ride with all the homies. You can stay for a week after and ride with all the boys, and then just stopping along the way. Like, when we left Dirt Surfers, we went and rode in Tulsa, and I went and rode in Colorado Springs, and we rode in Denver and rode in Oregon, so like just finding all the riding spots. And again, the magic of this sport is like having friends in all these cities where you can just be like, hey, I'm going to be in town. Like, let's go rip a trail on Saturday. And I mean, that's just so cool to have that, I mean, that's been so neat. And yeah, me and Peggy's adventures, so we left without a vehicle. We thought we're going to either take the e-bikes or one wheels, and that's going to be our only means of transportation. And that definitely makes it hard at times. We've been on some sketchy rides. When we were in Santa Cruz the last couple of times ago, we rode like 5 miles like down Highway 9.
Oh yeah, you were telling me. I was like, that's wild, dude. I can't believe you did that.
I know, I can't either. But once you get there, you're like, we only have one way back. Like, so you get yourself in these positions, but it's all fun. It's all part of the adventure. Like now me and Peggy like holy crap, you believe we did that? But no, it's every day is an adventure. I don't know.
What have been some of the biggest challenges for the RV life, and just kind of that shift in life that you've had? What have been some of the bigger challenges?
So we didn't even have a dog before we sold the company. Like me and Peggy had like the simplest like life. Like we didn't have a dog. We didn't have any kids at home. Like we had not, like it was just, we went to work, we came home, and then we sold the business, got a dog, got an RV, and it's just like life goes crazy. So the dog has been an interesting one. Just, you're limited on what you can do with a dog, where you can take them. So that's added some adventures. Not having a vehicle has added some adventures. But really just figuring it all out. I mean, we love every minute of it. Every day is an adventure. And it's nice not having a plan. Like, it's really hard to plan, but it's also nice not to have a plan. One of the coolest things, we stopped in Idaho we were just going to stop one night. We were passing through, and we ended up staying there a week. It was
Idaho is like,
it's so crazy.
I think Idaho is one of the like most beautiful states that doesn't get recognized. Maybe it is these days, but I traveled to Idaho quite a bit, like almost a decade ago, and I fell in love with that place.
Yeah. Even Wyoming was beautiful. There's so much just beautiful country out there that, there's no dull moments, that's for sure.
How about like people other than like one-wheelers, people you've met on the road, or any like notable folks, like small town places?
I mean, I do meet a lot of people. They're, just mostly just people out living life. One of the coolest ones I met, I talked to this guy. This was in Asheville or Old Fort. We were in North Carolina, and this guy just started talking. He sees my one wheel. He's like, oh, we start talking. He's like, yeah, I'm an electrical engineer. And I was like, oh yeah, what kind of work you in? And he's like, we're working on, I don't know, probably like talking about stuff I shouldn't even, the guy's having a private conversation with me, but he's telling me that he works for these electric boat manufacturer, and they just built this huge facility in North Carolina where they're going to start building electric boats.
Oh, wow.
And he's got me so stoked on electric boats, like, and and it was just like such a cool conversation. So I looked him up online and started following him on Instagram, and like watching their progress, and like all comes from just like some random guy. I was just like, but he's like, oh, I work at the factory. I'm like one of 4 employees at this place, and
wow.
like, so just neat stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, those are the good ones.
Yeah,
there's probably a few bad ones, like, yeah, just crazy people that you run into. They're just like, what?
What's been like the wildest area you've traveled through? Like in terms of just like, oh, this exists. Like for me, I've done a lot of biking through like the South, and there's a lot of Southern hospitality, but at the same time there was like, whoa, I should keep going because people are looking at me like I don't belong here,
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, the biggest thing I've been surprised with is the amount of homeless. Like, we have homeless in St. Louis. Like, it's not like I've never seen, but just how, like, I've been floored by that. Like, really, just how much they're in major cities, and just how just normal it is, really. And that's been one shocker.
Right? It is so normalized. It's very sad that it's that normal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, moving to Santa Cruz was like, I lived in Austin, Texas before this. There was homelessness there when I was there. It was pretty bad, but like when I came to Santa Cruz, it was like, it was normal here. Like there, it was like, seemed like, okay, there's people scattered a little bit. Here, it was just like, it's a part of life.
Yeah.
And that was very shocking to me. And then you go to like San Francisco or LA, and it's just like, what is going on, people?
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to like kind of wrap your head around.
Yeah, it sure is. Wild.
Dude.
But yeah, it's been a crazy adventure, and just seeing, my best place is to be out just in the middle of nowhere where I can't see anyone for miles, and yeah, just I love being out in the desolate land. That's really cool, away from people.
I know. It's like the older I get, the more I would just want to escape into the wilderness and not worry about people, do my own thing.
Right.
So having been around One Wheel for quite a while, what in your eyes to see like the jumps and progression, and not only, the technology and stuff, but the riding, what has that been like? I mean, if you're talking 2017 with pluses, and now you got all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah. The riding, the progression's been insane. I remember like the first person to like go up a curb.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was like, what? I can remember at Float Life Fest 1, there was a 2x4 that was laying in the grass. And like, that was a clinic, was how to get over the 2x4 in the grass, and there was like a 6x6 that no one even like dared to, it was just these things that were so distant. Bodie was, of course, there, showing us what all could be done on a one wheel. But for the most part, it was like, there was nothing, and then I don't even remember trails really becoming a thing. Trails was just kind of this, I don't know. They didn't exist until like 2019. And then all of a sudden, boom, now we're riding our one wheels on trails, and it just started to just change and evolve so much. And, to go from the Plus to the XR was a big shift, because on the Plus you were limited. You could only, and I think that was probably where we seen the big shift with trails, because if you were out riding your Plus on trails, you were only going 3 or 4 miles before you were out of battery, before you had to go back and charge. So maybe that was about the same time the XR, it opened up a lot more terrain to be able to get out there. XR gave us more board, and then just to watch the rider ability just to continue to evolve and to see, there's so many people I can remember them coming like, where did this person come from?
Yeah.
How do they do this like magic? And it's been really fun to watch the progression of the sport and the riders and the boards and the technology and, and the tuning of, the shaping. And I think it all just continually builds upon itself.
And it's crazy to think that we're in only the first decade of it.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine like, I don't know, just something that was invented like dirt bikes, the first decade of dirt bikes.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
And now they're just like doing crazy stuff. And I don't know.
I think a lot about, the first, when the Plus was released, like the shaping that was on it, like kind of sucked. Like, and this is before your time, you might not even remember it, but they had an update that came out in 2017, like shortly after receiving the board, that changed everything. Like prior to that, it was fun, but like there were certain things, and it just like, that was the kind of the aha moment, was like, this board just got better and I didn't do anything except upgrade the software, the firmware, and it's just continued from there. And to go talking about, bringing up kind of maybe the bad, but with Vest coming out and being on the scene here lately, and maybe that has to make so many people appreciate what Future Motion did, because to see that and to see how much work, and I mean, there's a lot of people and a lot of work going on there that they're not, to bring a product to us is super special. I mean, and it just makes me appreciate all the groundwork that went into to bring One Wheel to market,
Yeah, as like a legitimate product too.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool that people are doing everything to, just see what's possible on a board.
Mm-hmm.
But it had to come from somewhere, right? And there had to be trial and error and all this stuff. And it kind of blows my mind. It's like, it's hard. It's easy to forget what didn't exist when, if you come into it now, you're like, oh, this is what the standard is now. Right. This is the standard. But like you're saying, like the Plus for you is like, it was cool. And then there was this update.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's just that progression of it'll continuously, it's like a snowball effect, it'll just keep morphing into and rolling and going, and it'll just get better and better. And it just takes time too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who would ever, 5-6 years in, that this is crazy that this is where we're at. And I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, man.
Definitely awesome.
As somebody that's been riding for a while, and also for somebody that's experienced, an accident, a serious traumatic accident, and you still ride, you got back on your board after it and everything. What do you think, like, for people that maybe are looking into getting a one wheel or are new to the sport, like, what kind of mentality should people have around that? Because it's like with skateboarding, any type of board sport, I mean, mountain biking, you're going to take falls. I think like a lot of people will hear something like, oh, he got really injured. What happened? Like, that's dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, what is it in you that made you just like, it seemed like you didn't even have a thing like, oh, I'm not riding a one wheel anymore. It was just like,
yeah, no, it's crazy to think that like that's all I cared about was how long is this going to keep me off of this wheel? You know, anyone that's on the fence about it, I'd say stay offline, because you're only going to see like the bad stuff. Yeah, you're going to see all the complaints, but it's a board sport. I mean, there's obviously some risk involved, but I think there are certain things you can do that will keep yourself very safe while riding. Gear is important.
Huge.
I think I tell all new riders, if you stay under 15 miles an hour, you're pretty safe. I mean, for the most part, like that's a safe spot to be in, to learn the board, to learn your muscle memory, to just learn yourself. I mean, most people could probably run out at 15 miles an hour,
Yeah.
and that's a safe speed, and just be aware. I used to always think whenever I first rode, my brain was, what would I do if this board turned off at this exact second? Because until you develop that relationship with the board,
You don't know.
and it is a relationship.
Yeah.
Like even getting a GT, it was like, wow, I got to like build this relationship. It's like a trust thing, like you start to trust that board, and just keeping it in that spot to allow to build that trust with the board and to build that confidence and muscle memory. There's always going to be accidents that happen, like with any board sport, but I think most you can ride a one wheel safely. I would say.
Oh, 100%. Like, and I think your point about 15 is like, I got this from Javier Starks, is you shouldn't ride faster than you can't run.
Yeah.
So like, if you can't run 18, 19 miles an hour, maybe you shouldn't be riding that fast, or you should reconsider, that's up to the person. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, if you ride the board normally and you build that relationship, that's how I learned, was I want to know everything about this thing. How does it feel at 85%? How does it feel at 20%? How does it feel when my tire pressure is super high? How does it feel when it's super low? What happens when I move this way? What if I'm off balance and I move that way? And you get to, just like anything, you get to know where your body is in space, and you build that trust with the board, because you hop on it, you're like, oh, this is easy. And then you're like, oh, wait, it's doing its own thing, but the board only does things if you give it input.
Yeah.
So it's really all up to the rider.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it does create a hard, like, I'm so glad that I got into it when it was just the simple days of the plus, and that no one was doing anything too crazy, because it would be hard you come in now and you see like people doing 30 miles an hour and racing these trails and hitting these crazy drops, and that's intimidating for a new rider. But it's like the mindset is like, they want to go out and try and do 30. It's like, no, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yes, speed is definitely one of those things that
Yeah.
Everyone's chasing that speed number for sure, and that's where a lot of those accidents happen.
Yeah, pushing. You got to respect pushback.
For sure.
Right on, man. Well, I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, or?
Man, no, I'm sure there's 100 things I'll think about whenever I leave here. Definitely a little nervous sitting here.
Yeah.
Definitely just a quick shout out to my home group, Onewheel St. Louis. I started that group back in 2017. Whenever I bought the Onewheel, and for probably a year or two, we didn't have anybody except like when people would be like passing through town. And a funny story, I started this group, and I come walking into my office one day, like, and the girls in my office are like smiling ear to ear. They're so happy. And I'm like, what is going on here? And they're like, you're going to be so happy. I'm like, what? They're like, we found a Facebook group, Onewheel St. Louis. I'm like, I started the group. And they're like, oh, man. But they were actually like the first two people to join the group. It was so funny. It was like their secretary. But now we have over 750, 800 people in the group. So it's been a really good
Wow.
group. So shout out to Onewheel St. Louis. That's cool. Another quick, so I'm in one of these great, there's many great one-wheel chats out there, and I'm in one that we nicknamed AGB that just is, it's a gathering of the minds, and I love being part of this group. We talk about everything one wheel, and it's like the pulse of the community, and it's a very, this is a good chat. I'm happy to be a part of, and anyway, I told them I'd give them a shout out. So.
Heck yeah. And on that, I completely oversaw this. I was like in my bed writing notes on my phone, but I was like looking on my iPad. It didn't show up. You were at the Riders Summit.
Yeah.
You've been here so many times since I like kind of forgot that happened and that you were here, and like just like briefly talk to me about that experience and maybe give some context for people listening about that experience, because it was the first Rider Summit we ever put on. And being somebody that attended it.
That's funny because I thought that'd be one of the main things we talked
I
about.
know, I totally botched that. That means people have to listen to the end.
There you go. No, the Rider Summit was so cool, and I was like a kid in a candy store to get invited. I was just so honored to come here to Future Motion and hang out with like so many talented riders for a few days. But then just to see, like, that was cool on itself. But then just to see, like, the communication, the progress that we felt like we made, like, it felt very productive. To hear all the different riders that were there, it felt like it was almost complemented each other. You know, we would break into these groups and kind of discuss different things. And then when we'd come back together, we'd have a lot of the same ideas, but just with little different flares. And it like just, I don't know, it just felt like everything really like we massaged out a lot of details and like brought up a lot of really good ideas. It was really cool to see Future Motion like want to have that summit and like want our input and ask those questions like, what can we do today to change? What can we do tomorrow to change? What can we do as a company in the future? And to see, you know, that sincere want for the sport just felt really good. And it felt like we were all on the same team. Like we were all just riders that had the same passion, that had the same vision. And I felt really good leaving out of here. Like it hopefully really made a difference in the future of the sport. And was so stoked to be a part of it.
What were some of the highlights?
Oh man, there were so many.
Because like there was like a lot of riding.
I mean, the riding was super sick. I mean, that's like anytime you're riding, like we're riding like super sick trails in Santa Cruz, like whether it's on the bluff or through the redwoods, like the riding was like top notch for sure. It was really cool, the bus stop thing. That was one of the just cool moments. Like, so we were in Airbnb 3, so we were like the third Airbnb to get picked up. But like, just the way they did it, like, you know, you and Jack like go around all the different little Airbnbs and pick up every little group. And then like by the time you got to us, it was like, all right, here's the gang. And we just rolled into the office and go get coffee. It was like being a Future Motion employee for a few days. You know, it was really cool. I mean, just being here at the facility was really neat. Like, you know, seeing that wall of all the OneWheels from the original one to the GT, like, you know, seeing that so many times on whether it's your guys' Instagram story or somebody that's been here visiting, it was just like one of those things like, I want to see that, you know? Yeah. And so it was really cool to actually be here and see that. And just how inviting the whole facility was, and just to come in and be able to walk around and hang out and get to know you guys was a really cool part. To chat with Kyle. Like, oh yeah, dude, we rode with Kyle. Like, not a lot of people can probably say they've been on a group ride with Kyle. Like, that was super fun. And then like, then I got to actually hang out and like talk to Kyle. Like, it was, you know, like he was just like another dude that we just like got to hang out and talk about just average stuff. And then it was funny, like a few of the guys when we get back to the Airbnb, they're like, what were you talking with Kyle about? Shane over there with all the Kyle time, you know, and it was just so funny. And it made me feel like, that was awesome. You know, it was really cool. So,
yeah, I mean, as somebody that's been on the product for so long, to like get to hang out with the dude that created it, that's got to be amazing feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially how dedicated you are to OneWheeling and the sport and the community. Like, like I obviously see Kyle all the time, so it's not like for me, it's just like, oh, right, there's Kyle. But like sometimes I do have to stop myself and be like, this is all exists because he had this little crazy idea.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
and ran with it.
It is. It's so crazy to think too, like, because some people don't on the outside looking in, like a lot of people think I'm just crazy that, I like gave up my whole life for this electric skateboard. But for the people that get it, like once you've experienced that flow state and like once it, like you don't have to explain anything to them. They know and they get it, It's crazy.
Was there anything that surprised you coming to the office? And I feel like our office is it's like hard to tell because it's a huge building, but we only use a small portion of it. So like a lot of people think we're a ginormous corporation that like just, we're out here and this big old building and really it's just like, I mean, it's a dope office and we've worked really hard to get here and make it into what it is. But
yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it was a lot. To come in to hang out for a few days and just to see like, wow, I've pretty much seen every Future Motion employee here, like that it really is that small. I mean, kind of reminds me of my company, that it's just small, family owned. I mean, you say family, but you're all like family. You all have the same vision in mind. And that was kind of the same thing that I was just, we're all here for the same reason. Like,
exactly.
That's the thing. And it's like, and if you can get your whole team on that, like that culture is just magical, and that was, you guys are just a small company that are with big results that are just trying to do the right thing was kind of what I left with. I don't know. It felt good to leave and know that you guys were just riders like us and had the same visions as us and really want to see all the same things that we want to see. It's just, you can, obviously you can't make everything happen overnight.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing is like things take time, especially at scale. And, when people like want certain things and it's like, well, like you got to know what actually goes into that.
Yeah.
Especially like, as like a business owner, if you want to grow and expand in certain areas, like it takes a lot of effort and a lot of resources. And sometimes that slows other areas down.
Yeah. One thing circling back to the summit that I wish that I feel like OneWheel and Future Motion, and it's probably very hard to do on a mass scale, but communication, I feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions out there. Like if everyone knew what we knew from coming into the summit, I feel like the community would be a lot happier and just a lot more content, like the way it was explained to us just made it made sense. Like I wish everyone knew the things that we knew to take some of the pressure off of you guys. I feel like you guys still get a lot of heat, and I see it out there and it's like, I mean, OneWheel's Future Motion not perfect. OneWheel's not perfect. Nobody is, but you see some of it and you're just like, they're not seeing the whole story. And I felt like that was one advantage that we got coming into the summit was to see a little bit behind the curtains and see what you guys are up against and made it easier for us to understand. And it's hard to not scream that to everyone sometimes, too.
Oh, I totally get it. And then there's that fine line of like transparency, but it's like how much do you tell? And then, I mean, that's like way above my head.
Sure.
But it's like totally makes sense. Like, I mean, communication is key in life, right? Like everything, whether it's your wife, your girlfriend, your friends, your boss, the people who buy your product, like communication is what makes the world go round. And if it's not dialed, then people can make up whatever they want and run with it. And no, I had a blast during the summit because, like, especially the studio, it's like we live in here and like put a lot of effort into it here, and this is where you spend a lot of your time. So for me, I was like having friends over, like cleaning up and like, oh, I want to hang this stuff up, and like Rylan and Kevin like hung up stuff, and I don't know, it was just like so much fun to host everybody.
Yeah,
that was great. I'm excited for the next one.
Me too. Hope I gotta
who knows
I gotta
when
figure
that
out how
would
to
be
get.
or when,
Figure out how to get an invite back for that one. Yeah, that would be total FOMO. And it was funny because whenever I seen you guys announce that, I was like, oh, I got to put my submission in right now. Because if I don't, and I find out that this happened and I'll be so mad at myself that I didn't submit. So,
Well, I can tell you this. I think we got your submission, and when your name came up, the whole team was like, yeah, we should get Shane in here
nice.
and get him. And I was stoked.
Yeah, it felt cool. Yeah, when I read that message, I was just like, no way. No way. Like, honey, change plans. We're going to Santa Cruz. That's awesome.
Well, hell yeah, Shane. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank all you guys for everything, man.
Yeah.
Super stoked.
Taking time out of your adventurous life to come be in Santa Cruz again, stop by, chat with us. I'm really glad that you mentioned it, that you wanted to come on the podcast because, it's like, podcast is kind of like one of the things that, like, it's not a priority, but it's something I want to continuously do. And we try to be consistent, but it's like, you got all the other things that are going on in the marketing world and one wheel world. And, I'm glad that we could have somebody like you on here.
Yeah, no, totally. I've even, because I think we've had podcast number 1, like, a few times, right?
Dude, yeah. Well, there was like several iterations of the podcast.
Right. So I just wanted to see you keep it going this time.
Yeah. So you will be episode 10, which is awesome. That's a huge milestone for us. Last question before we get out of here. Who would you like to see on the podcast in the future? It could be anybody. Think of, like, it could be a famous person that rides a one wheel. It could be a community member. It could be anyone.
I'll give you a couple answers on that one. Like, when I think of, like, celebrities, like, I mean, I'll go let's get Tom Brady in here. I mean, we all know Tom Brady's got a one wheel. Let's shoot for the moons. The Salt Bay, like, that dude is pretty cool. Like, I don't know if he'd have much to say, but, like, he comes to mind whenever we're talking about celebrity. But I don't know what other celebrities ride one wheels. Maybe I'm missing somebody.
There's a bunch.
Yeah. How about we get those X Game winners in here?
There we go.
I like that idea. That would be super sick.
See their perspective.
And and I'll go ahead and throw this one out there too. When I seen One Wheel and the Float Life do the wine and cheese, it was like the whole community was just like, it was just a breath of fresh air.
They're like, what the hell is this?
Everybody was just grinning ear to ear. So
what are they doing?
Yeah, that was crazy, but that was crazy. But I'd always love to see Jeff or Bodie or somebody come back because I think that it's great minds of our industry, and, and anytime they're in the same room together, I think is magic happens. So, but no, any of our vendors I think would be great. I know. I don't know. I guess.
There's a lot.
We're gonna have to edit this. I brought way too much third-party stuff. No, but I mean, it does. It does get sticky whenever you start getting into vendors and stuff. But the event coordinators. I know you had Manuel in here.
Yeah.
I think you've had maybe Nick and Rachel on. They're not really the talkative type. It'd be hard to get them nailed down. Just anything one wheel. I mean, that's a good one. Let's edit this out. I'll email you my answers on that one.
That's all good. All right, Shane. Well,
cool.
That was a good time.
Yeah, man.
Feeling great. Ready to go get another cup of coffee now.
For sure. For sure.
Well, I'll see you at Race for the Rail.
Heck yeah. Stoked to be there.
Heck yeah.
We'll see you then.
Right on.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Stoke on, folks.
Yee.